7 seconds ago, your brain already decided what you're going to do next. Not you, your brain. Before the thought even reached your consciousness, the decision was already made. In 1983, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet wired people up to machines and proved it. He watched their brains make choices before they knew they'd made them, by up to 7 seconds. The study was so disturbing that scientists spent the next 40 years trying to disprove it. They couldn't. You have never made a single free decision in your life. And the evidence has been sitting in a laboratory since 1983.
Let's start with what free will actually means. Not the philosophical version, not the religious one, just the version you walk around believing every single day. You wake up in the morning. You decide to get out of bed. You decide what to eat. You decide who to text back and who to ignore. You feel the intention form inside you. You feel yourself choosing. And then you act. That feeling, that sense of being the author of your own actions, is so fundamental to being human that most people have never once questioned whether it's real. Libet questioned it, and what he found broke something that has never quite been put back together. In 1983, Benjamin Libet ran one of the simplest experiments in the history of neuroscience. He asked volunteers to sit in a chair, watch a clock, and flex their wrist whenever they felt like it. No instructions about timing, no pressure, just move whenever the urge hits you. While they did this, electrodes attached to their scalps recorded their brain activity in real time. Libet was looking for one specific thing: the moment the brain decided to move. What he found was this. The brain began preparing to move roughly 550 milliseconds before the actual movement happened. That part wasn't surprising. Brains need time to send signals to muscles. But here's the thing that changed everything. The volunteers didn't become consciously aware of their intention to move until about 200 milliseconds before the movement, which means the brain had already committed to the action 350 milliseconds before the person even knew they were going to do it. The decision came first. The awareness came second. You weren't driving. You were a passenger, being told about the route after it was already chosen. Scientists called this the readiness potential. And when Libet published his results, the reaction from the scientific community was not celebration. It was panic. Because if the brain fires before the conscious mind decides, then what exactly is the conscious mind doing? Libet himself was disturbed by his own findings. He spent years after the study trying to find the escape hatch, the thing that preserved some version of free will inside the data. He thought he found one. He called it the veto. Yes, your brain initiates the action before you know about it, but in the final 200 milliseconds before the movement, you can consciously cancel it. You can stop yourself. And Libet argued that this veto power was free will, not the freedom to initiate, the freedom to refuse. But here's where it gets darker. Because in 2008, a team at the Max Planck Institute in Germany took Libet's work and pushed it somewhere he never went. They put volunteers inside an fMRI scanner, the kind that maps blood flow through the brain in real time, and asked them to press one of 2 buttons whenever they felt like it, left hand or right hand, completely their choice. Then they ran the data through a pattern recognition algorithm, and they found that by reading the activity in 2 specific regions of the brain, the frontopolar cortex and the precuneus, they could predict which button the person was going to press up to 7 seconds before the person consciously decided to press it. 7 seconds, not milliseconds, full seconds. The kind of time where you could have a conversation, check your phone, and still know what someone is about to choose before they do. The researchers could look at your brain and tell you what you were going to decide before the thought had even surfaced in your mind. Think about what that means. If your decision exists in your brain 7 seconds before you're aware of it, where exactly did it come from? You didn't choose it. It was already there, forming in the dark, assembling itself from inputs you had no access to. And then your consciousness showed up, felt the intention arrive, and took credit. There's a name for this in neuroscience. It's called confabulation. Your conscious mind is extraordinarily good at constructing reasons for things that were never actually its decision. Psychologist Michael Gazzaniga spent decades studying patients whose left and right brain hemispheres had been surgically separated to treat severe epilepsy. When he gave the right hemisphere a silent instruction, stand up, the patient would stand up. Then he'd ask them why, and the left hemisphere, which had no idea what instruction the right hemisphere received, would immediately invent a reason. I wanted to stretch. I felt like getting some water. The explanation was completely fabricated, but it felt true. It felt like a real memory of a real intention. Your brain does this constantly, every single day. You act, then your conscious mind writes a story about why, and you believe the story because you're the one telling it. The feeling of choosing is real. The choice itself may not be. But let's be honest about where this gets complicated. Because the free will debate is not settled. Not even close. Some neuroscientists pushed back hard on Libet. Researchers like Aaron Scherger argued in 2012 that the readiness potential isn't actually a decision being made. It's background neural noise, random fluctuations in brain activity that occasionally tip over a threshold and trigger movement. On this reading, there's no hidden decision maker in your brain running 7 seconds ahead of you. There's just randomness crossing a line, which raises its own problem. Because if your decisions aren't being made by a hidden conscious process, and they're not being made by your conscious mind, and they might just be random neural noise reaching a tipping point, that's not free will either. That's just chaos wearing the costume of choice. And here's the part that nobody talks about. The implications of this reach further than just neuroscience. The entire architecture of human society is built on the assumption of free will. Criminal law, moral responsibility, praise and blame. The idea that you deserve credit for your achievements and punishment for your failures. All of it rests on the belief that you could have done otherwise, that you, the conscious you, made a real choice and are genuinely responsible for it. Robert Sapolsky, the Stanford neuroscientist and author, spent 50 years studying the biology of human behavior. And his conclusion, published in his 2023 book Determined, was blunt. There is no free will. None. Every decision you make is the product of your genes, your hormones, your childhood, your culture, what you ate that morning, and 1,000 other variables that were set in motion long before you existed. You are the output of a system. And systems don't choose. They calculate. Now, you're probably feeling something right now. Resistance, a tightening somewhere in your chest, or you're thinking that says, no, that can't be right. I know I make real choices. And here is the strange, uncomfortable truth about that feeling. It might be the most important data point in this entire conversation. Because that resistance, that absolute certainty that you are choosing, is itself a product of your brain. A brain that evolved to generate the experience of agency, because organisms that feel in control behave differently than organisms that don't. The feeling of free will might be a survival tool, a story your brain tells you so you keep trying, keep planning, keep acting as if your choices matter, even if they don't. Even if they were already written somewhere in the firing patterns of your neurons before the sun came up this morning. Libet died in 2007. He never fully resolved the question he spent his life asking. In his final writings, he said he still believed in some form of free will, not because the data supported it, but because the alternative was something he couldn't accept. And maybe that's the most honest place to land. Not a clean answer, just a crack in something you thought was solid. The next time you feel yourself making a decision, a small one, what to eat, what to say, which way to walk home, pause for just a second. Try to catch the moment the choice arrived. Try to find where it came from. You won't be able to. And that gap, that tiny dark space between the decision and the awareness of it, is where the most unsettling question in neuroscience lives. Not who made the choice, but whether there was ever a you to make it.